ready? So, what are we doing here again? We gotta take Fontes to the airport again, remember? Yeah. Let's do this. Fontes. Hey.
Guys, what's up, brothers? Hey, man, I appreciate the ride to the airport.
Don't worry about it.
You mind helping me with the bags?
Sure, no.
Okay, no problem.
Is that it, Fontes?
Yeah, that's my bags. Well, we gotta get my wife's bags. Oh, thank you, honey.
What the? So how long are you going for, Fontes?
Oh, 2 days.
I've been there and I've been here.
I've been places far and near. I stared the devil in the eye.
Hello, it's Viejo Fontes, and I'm back with my blogs. These blogs are going to be about travel, because travel is the best form of adventure. It's also the best form for you to grow as an individual, to learn about the world, to not have narrow views about how everything is. Travel not only opens your horizons, it opens up your mind, it also opens up your heart to other cultures and other people. It's really a most wonderful thing you can do. Now, when I was a young man, I decided that I wanted to be an adventurer. I wanted to become an adventurer because I read this book at 12 years old. My Aunt Martha gave it to me. Richard Halliburton's Book of Marvels. And this really rich guy named Halliburton, the same Halliburton that owned the company that ends up being run by former Vice President Cheney, that son of a bitch war criminal. But anyway, this guy, Halliburton, went on this trip where he was a real rich guy, and he jumped into the Mayan well. He swam the Panama Canal. He flew a plane over Mount Everest. This was like in the 20s or 30s when he did this stuff. And so it influenced me, and it taught me that I wanted to be an adventurer in my life. So in 1969, I decided that the next summer I would go to Europe. And of course I'd need to have some money, so I got a job. And the job I got was with LA County cleaning the Burbank Courthouse. I would arrive at 5 p.m. and I would work till midnight. During that time, I would clean the judges' offices, I would clean the courtroom, the cells, and the sheriff's office. And man, that was scary because I was loaded most of the time. And but there was no one ever there, so I would go up on the roof and smoke my joints, come down and clean the whole place. And I got an award for being the best janitor they ever had. I can't imagine what the other motherfuckers were doing. I was like getting stoned most of the time. So anyway, so the summer 1970 came, I quit my job, and I took a flight, the midnight flight, to Chicago. I arrived in Chicago early in the morning. I was only going to be there till the evening because I was going to fly to New York City. So, and Chicago was an interesting place. I'd never been there before. I went to the Academy for Art there, the big museum, and I saw Picasso's Blue Man with the Blue Guitar. And I just walked around the city. But that night I flew to New York City. In New York City, my sister had a friend named Lisa, who had brothers, that she knew through transcendental meditation. And we had a deal that he was going to stay at my house in Silver Lake, my apartment in Silver Lake, while I went to, stayed with him for a week in New York City, and then I was going to fly to Europe. So I arrived there, and they picked me up in New York City, and there were long-haired dudes like I was. I get in the van, they're smoking joints. I'm going like, wow, this is great. So we drive to Brooklyn, and they lived in a brownstone. We go up to their room, and we walk into their apartment, and it had a main room with doors all the way around it. But in the middle of the main room, there was a big dining table, and there was this guy weighing out a kilo into lids. I said, now there's something I can relate to. This is the way I've been getting through college. So I said, well, let me help you, man. So I was going to stand there for weeks sleeping on a couch. Least I could do is be part of the guys. So I'm sitting there putting pot in the baggies and handing it to the guy, and he's weighing it on his triple beam. And all of a sudden, one of the doors opened, and out walks a policeman. Full uniform, gun on his hip. My first thought is, oh shit, I'm going to the tombs. I'm going to be in jail, New York. These guys just set me fucking up for some kind of bust. This guy walks out and he looks at me and he goes, hi. and the other guys go, oh, this is our roommate Bob. And I went, really? He goes, yeah, I'm going to go to work. I'll see you guys later. And he leaves. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And there his roommates are weighing out pot, and he was a cop. So I was going to be in New York about 4 or 5 days. Now, whenever you go somewhere, I'm going to be giving everyone some little rules of the road. Whenever you go anywhere, I always kind of check out the scene before you start taking loyalties. These guys had a bully in their apartment building, a Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico, my heart's devotion, let it sink back in the ocean. All right, West Side Story. But anyway, so I'm staying with them, hanging out, meeting their neighbors, and then somehow I end up upstairs with a guy, and I'm the big macho young Mexican guy, and he's the big macho Puerto Rican guy, of the bully of the brownstone. So right away, me and him are like, and one thing leads to another, and we have this big arm wrestling match, and there's all these people around. So, and needless to say, Viejo Fontes put him down right hand, put him down left hand. I was the hero of the block. After that, I could do what I want, show up when I want, didn't really matter. Now, New York, of course, is a great place. I had another little adventure there. I went to the Museum of Modern Art and saw Picasso's Guernica and other great works. But while I'm walking around, I see this really foxy, classy looking, I'm 22, really foxy looking woman around 26, 27. She's checking out the art. Viejo Fontes like radar goes, nee. So I walk up to her and start talking. I knew a lot about art, I still do, and I'm talking about this painting and that painting because I'd taken my art history classes in college. And she seemed to be getting along, but she didn't, she was being nice to me. Now, there's a black guard, the museum guard's kind of following us around. And so he's watching me trying to hit on this chick. And finally he just goes, hey man, come here, brother, come here. So I walk over and he goes, hey brother, why don't you invite her to this? And he gives me 2 tickets for that night. John Lee Hooker's going to play in the garden of the museum. So I go, wow, man, thanks. So I say to her, hey, look, why don't you come tonight and we'll go to the concert? She goes, oh, great. So we split. So I go back to the hotel, get myself washed and cleaned and wearing my best cutoffs and t-shirt. And I go back to the museum, and the sun is setting. It's hot. It's the middle of summer, and the lady walks up looking beautiful, and I go, hey, hi, this stuff, and I give her ticket. We both walk in, and she turns and goes, well, thanks a lot, and walks away from me. Little to say, I was deflated. So, I went, oh, well, okay, well, that's that. So I go stand over they had some trees in the garden. I go stand by the garden, and I pull out this little bottle of Bacardi rum that I'd bought, that I hoped to share with her, and I beep, 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 beep. And I feel these eyes on me, and I look over, and there's John Lee Hooker. And he's like, he's got this pig nose amp, and he's like messing with the guitar, but he's looking at me, and he goes, and I go, and he goes, So I walk over and he goes, "What you drinking, boy?" I said, "A little rum." He goes, "Give me that bottle." So I give him the bottle. So he goes, "Sit down here next to me." So I sit down next to him right there at his feet, and he takes a swig of the rum, and he had like Colt 45 or some kind of malt liquor there, and he goes, "Open yourself a beer." So I start drinking it, and he's drinking it, and we're drinking, and he does this whole concert, and every once in a while he'll stick his hand out, I'll give him the rum, he'll drink the rum and put his hand out, I'll give him his beer. Meanwhile, I'm getting fucked up there. And it was, it was really cool, man. John Lee doing his concert. So at the end of the concert, John Lee says to me, he goes, "I'm going to a party. You want to go?" And I went, "Sure." So he tells me this address, and he tells me it's in Harlem. This Mexican ain't no fool. 1970, hippie, not a good place for a Mexican hippie boy to be, is Harlem in 1970. So, but I said, "Oh, cool, I'll go, whatever." Now, then I see that chick who had put me down is like, all of a sudden getting all smiley at me. So she walks over, she goes, "Oh, you know him?" I go, "Oh, yeah, we're old friends." I go, "I'm going to go to a party now." She goes, "Oh." And she goes, "Can I go?" And I went, "No. Revenge!" So I felt a lot better. So there I was getting ready to go. I had my passport. Viejo Fontes looking young. And I had my birth certificate, which has got a fascinating thing in here. It says race. I was born here in Los Angeles, California. It says race. It says white Mex. So all you kids in Cut A used to call me the White Mex. You should feel better now. That's an official title. They'll give it to me by the LA County. So I flew to Europe on Hip Hop Airlines, which is Icelandic Airlines. And it was the big hip thing to do back then. So the plane flew from New York to Iceland. We stayed in Iceland a couple hours. It was hellaciously cold. And then we flew to Luxembourg. And so there I was, out of the airport, backpack on my back, and I asked someone, "Which way is Germany?" And the guy points down the road, and I start walking. And I walk, and I hitchhike. I get a ride with a guy in a hay wagon. I get a ride with a guy in a car. And then I walk into this little village, just like you've seen in the movies, this tiny little European village. And I don't even know what the name of it was. And I asked the guy, "Where are we?" And he goes, "Deutschland." And I went, "Wow, I'm in Germany." So it was my first night in Europe, so I figured I'd treat myself. I got a nice little hotel room in a fancy place. I ate a big dinner, and I would never spend that much money at one sitting again. So I got up in the morning, and I headed up to Cologne. And in Cologne, I checked into the youth hostel. And I went to the museum. I went to the great basilica there, the cathedral. I tried to pick up a girl. She kind of flirted with me. We made out, and that was it. And then I ended up spending the night in the youth hostel. And I remember sitting there in the youth hostel, watching the Rhine River go by, and it's all illuminated by the city lights, and everyone's asleep. And I remember thinking, this is an adventure. This is fantastic. I'm going to do as much crazy shit as I can on this road. And this is what I was raised for, to be an adventurer. My father was educated at Heidelberg University. My grandfather was ambassador to Germany in the 20s, and I felt like, wow, this is for me. So I get up the next day and I start hitchhiking. I get a series of rides, and I end up in Belgium, and on my way to Amsterdam with probably half the other hippies that were in Europe at the time. So I'm in Amsterdam, and I meet up with a bunch of hippies, and I end up finding a place to crash, and we're all sitting there smoking hash, and there's this cute little black British girl. It was such a trip. I mean, from LA, this cute little British black girl. So we ended up spending the night together. It was really pretty cool. And The next morning, I'm off, and I'm up to Amsterdam. Now, you're going to have to understand something. This is 1970. There was no ISIS. There was, you know, it was a whole different world. You could travel pretty freely in Europe without worrying about terrorism or worrying about the police really hassling you. And Amsterdam was the first city to open its arms. Amsterdam had hash clubs. Amsterdam had taken all their empty buildings and turned them into youth hostels for that summer. And I checked into this youth hostel right off of one of the canals, and it was this big, huge hotel, or I don't know what it had been before, and it was co-ed. It was like boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl in all the beds and dorms. The showers were co-ed. You'd be showering, there'd be a girl right next to you showering. It was so cool. It was so normal, you know? Whereas in America, with all our hang-ups about nudity and stuff. So I started partying in Amsterdam. There was hash clubs, there was a Paradiso, there was a Fantasio. And you go in there, you'd buy hash, and you get stoned. And I remember walking through the Paradiso, and they had a room with televisions that were just all those lights, you know. I mean, it was like the test pattern or the blinking part where nothing's on. And I saw all these guys just... That must have been some strong acid, because those guys were spaced fucking out. And I remember going, oh my God. So we, you know, you go by and you look at the red light district. Never been in the hooker, so I didn't go to them. And it was very cool. You'd wake up in the morning, and the hash salesman would be at the foot of your bed. You want some hash? And I'd buy some hash, and I'd put some hash together with a piece of Dutch chocolate, and just that'd be my breakfast: eating hash and eating chocolate. And then I'd go out into the city and look at Amsterdam and look at the Anne Frank house and look at the Rijksmuseum and you know, get down with Rembrandt and get down with Van Gogh. So anyway, then I met this dude. I don't remember his name, but I called him Bronco because he was from the Bronx, and he was going to school in Milan, and he had a little Datsun Tiger, Sunbeam Tiger. If you don't know them, the 67 Datsun Tiger was this tiny little sports car with a V8 engine in it. It had the same, it had it's a 258, I believe it is, engine in it that we were using in the Mustang. And he got sick, and he said, here, use my car. So for like 3 days, I was like, he's driving this hot rod up and down the streets of Amsterdam, having people almost diving into the canals to get out of my way. Wah! I mean, you know, you're a kid, you're stupid, what are you gonna do? So then I decided, I have to go see the rest of Europe. So I took a train to Paris. I get to Paris, and the place is so crowded. I go to this Parisian agency that's helping young tourists, and they say, well, we have one room. No room in hostels to go. We have one room, and I'm there with some Viking-looking dude. You know, I don't remember if it was Norse or Swedish or whatever. And he's like, "Yo, you share a room?" I go, "Yeah, we'll share a room." So we get to an area of Paris that's called the Pigalle. The Pigalle is the whorehouse district of Paris, and so me and this guy, we get there, and the guy takes us up to the third floor. There's one room with one bed, and we pay him, and the guy goes, see you later, and he goes out, and I say, see you later, and I go out and spend a day looking at museums, and I mean, it's Paris, right? The city of light. And when I tell you about traveling makes you more sophisticated, it's the only real way to get sophisticated, is to go out among the world and see how others live and what others consider important. So anyway, I'm going around, and I go to I spent one whole day at the Jeu de Paume, where it used to be it's not even there anymore. It used to be it's a photograph museum now, but it was the Gauguin Museum, and I remember I spent the entire day in that museum. I sat in front of one painting of Gauguin's for at least 5 hours. I'm not kidding you. I just eat my little bit of hash, and it was really, really fantastic. And I was standing in the Louvre, And I don't remember when I was standing or what painting I was. And I hear someone talking behind me, and I go, man, I sure wish I could have a cheese enchilada and chicken taco. That was my old Carmen Cafe days. And I turn around, and it's Bill Morris, Dr. Bill Morris, and his wife, who were my friends. They were El Carmen customers. And that was a trip, being 8,000 miles away from home and someone recognizing you and making a joke. And I'm tripping out to Paris. You come home at night exhausted, me and the guy sleeping back to back, you know, getting up in the morning, walking all around Paris. And I remember one night I was walking, and there's groups of kids in the street, you know, it's really cool. And going to parks and standing by the Seine, and so there was this whole group of kids, and there was this girl in the group of kids, and she was kind of like being hit on by this African dude, but she suddenly got attracted to me, and she starts talking to me, and then the African dude takes me by the arm and pulls me to the side, and he says in Spanish, he says, "If you don't leave, I'm gonna stab you. She's mine tonight." Oh, scared the fuck out of me, I'll tell you that, brother. So I just went, okay, muchas gracias, adios. They all went, oh, you're leaving? And I said, yes, I am. And so I got the fuck out of there. And so I figured the next thing I had to do, I had to go to Spain. So I got on a train, and I don't know what it's like now, because this is 1970, okay? 46 years ago. And so then you take a train, and it would stop in Andorra, which is kind of cool. And you'd have to get out of the train at Andorra for like an hour or so. Then you'd get on another train, and it would take you to Madrid. So from Andorra, we went to Madrid, and you go to the youth hostel because you don't know anything else. And it was a pretty cool scene at the youth hostel. It wasn't as wide open as it was in Amsterdam. The girls and the guys were separated. Good old Catholicism, you know, it's Madrid. And so you'd go out at night, you'd drink with the guys, drink with the girls, get fucked up. One thing they had is they had the University of Madrid swimming pool was open. So it's hotter than hell. It's the middle of July. So I go to the place, and it's, well, it's pretty cool. Everybody's swimming in the pool, and they got a 3-meter board. I walk up to the top, and I saw how far down it was. I turned around and want to walk down. They said, you can't, you have to jump. Scared the fuck out of me. Ah! So then they had like a place to get burgers. So I order a hamburger, and I bite into it, and this is horse meat. Sure enough, I'd eaten horse meat before because we used to give horse meat to our dog. We had it ground round, and I came home one day from school, and I made myself a hamburger, and I bit it, and I went, oh, it must have gone bad. And then my grandma came home and said, you're eating horse meat. So I knew what horse meat tastes like, and that's what they make burgers out of in Spain. Another thing is you go out drinking every night, and I met these 2 Australian girls. And like, you know, come on, you're a young guy, and, you know, young girls are looking for it too. You know, you want to go out there and have some nice experiences. So I figured, you know, I really like this one. I figured if I got them drunk enough, you know, I might score. So I'm out there drinking with these 2 Australian girls. They buried me. They drank so much more than me, and I got to the point where I was passing out, and they were still standing. So that went that action. You learn, you live, you learn, you live. During the day, you go to the museums. You know, the Prado, wow. You know, Hieronymus Bosch. And I'm having a good time. I'm wearing a beret. I have long hair. I have my mustache and my little goatee and, you know, my imperial. And I'm thinking I'm cooler and shit. And I'm sitting in front of, so I decided to go sit out in front of the Prado. You know, get a little sun and then just sit there. And all of a sudden I get kicked in the back by a fucking, one of those fascist carabinieris that work for Franco. This punk-ass bastard holding a machine gun kicks me in the fucking back. What am I supposed to do? So, of course, I go, ow, what are you doing? And then he goes, I know you speak Spanish. And I go, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, you're filth, and you get off my grass. So I said, well, okay, you want me to leave, buddy? I'll leave. I was not going to speak Spanish to this son of a bitch, because I didn't know how much things were going to get worse if I could speak to him in his tongue. So I hung out in Madrid a few more days, and then I went to Barcelona. So, of course, you got to go to Barcelona. And, you know, Picasso and Gaudí, and it's just really a nice place. But it was big, and I was kind of tired of big cities, and I heard about a place called Sitges, Sitges. Sitges nowadays, because I went there again in 1978, and by then, those 8 years in between, it had become Miami Beach. Gigantic hotels and discos and, just restaurants. When I went there in 1970, it was a tiny little sleepy fishing town. And I got down to Sitges, and I run into a bunch of gypsies. Real live gypsies, just like in the movies. They were speaking their own language. I didn't understand them. It was cool, and they took me in. And they took me in, and I ate dinner with them, and I partied with them, drank their wine. I woke up in the morning, and they were all gone. So I grabbed my sleeping bag, rolled it up, put it on my backpack, went into Sitges, sat down, having, hot chocolate and a croissant, and I see this dude walk across the street and walk over to, like, a trash can. And he looks up and down. He doesn't even look at me. He doesn't see me. Looks up and down, takes out a bag, sticks it in there, and then walks away. And I go, ooh, a drug deal. So I get the fuck out of there. So I'm walking around Sitges, and sure enough, I run in, my karma, I run into these American guys. These guys had just smuggled, and I'm not kidding, a ton of hashish into Spain. In 1970, Franco was running Spain. For 1 gram of hashish, you would get 7 years in prison. So, a gram. So I walk into, I meet these guys, and they go, you want to get high? I go, yeah, sure. So I go to their house that they're renting over in the cliffs overlooking Sitges, and there is hashish piled up to the ceiling. I mean, so much. It's unfucking believable. And I just went, I got to get the fuck out of here. If the bus goes down when I'm here, you can forget it, buddy. You are never getting out of jail. So I bought an ounce, and I said, I got to go. And I got out there, and I ran into these other American friends who I'd met, and I said, oh, I got some hash. And I went, hey, you got hash? So we took a drive up the mountains behind Sitges, and it was like those French movies that are kind of, those early 60s French movies that are kind of surreal. We're traveling up there, and it's a Cordillera, and we're driving along the highway up at the very top of the mountain, and we have sheep going across the road. It's nighttime, it gets fog, we can't see where we're going, and then we come upon a horrific car accident. There's bodies laying out of the cars. It's just a horrific sight. So we, what do? People are all around helping. We're tourists. We just keep driving by. We're all traumatized. And we go driving back down from the mountains. And I'll never forget this. We come into the city again, into Sitges, the little town. And there, it was just like a Hemingway short story. There in the middle of the street, with the street lamps illuminating it, and it's kind of foggy. And there's 2 guys having a fist fight. A big dude around, I would say the man, older guy was probably in his 40s. He was around 6'2", about 240. And the other guy was probably in his early 20s, and he was about 6'4", 6'4", a little taller, and lean, but very muscular. And they're having this fist fight in the middle of this plaza. And we're in our car watching this, smoking hash. And it was like surreal. It was just amazing, you know. And the older guy kicked that young guy's ass. So I figured, you know, I'd seen enough facetious. So with these people who I'd driven that area with, they said they were going to Italy, and I asked if I could go. They had a van, and they said sure. So I got in a van with them, and we drive up right near the border, and I got all this hash. What am I going to do with it? You know, you're thinking they're going to test me. They're going to check me out and see what I got. So they go into, the people of the van go into the restaurant to eat something, and I sit in the back of the van, and I take out what's left of my ounce of hash, it's probably a half ounce, and I cut it in little thin slices. And I put them in an envelope, in a letter, and I fold it up, and I put it in an envelope, and I address it to myself, major cities along the route at American Express. American Express had a thing that if you had American Express card, which I didn't have, but I had American Express traveler's checks, they would accept your mail. So I chopped up all this hash, and I mailed it to Nice, I mailed it to Genoa, I mailed it to Milan, I mailed it to Florence, I mailed it to Rome, and in each one of these cities, all I had to do was just go to the American Express, show my passport, show them that I had American Express traveler's checks, and they'd give me my mail. And they'd give me my mail, and I'd have hash for, you know, 4 or 5 grams, 3 or 4 grams of hash for that city. So I'm sitting there, I'm cutting this stuff, and I see the shadow. And I can see the shadow. It's a fucking carabinieri. They have that hat, that almost Napoleonic looking hat that they had. I see it illuminated on the floor of the van in front of me as I'm cutting the hash. And I just go, oh my God, I am busted now. This guy's got see me with the hash, I'm cutting it up. So I pick up the hash, and I look up to him, and I go, would you like some chocolate? And the guy goes, mueve este automóvil, you know. And I go, oh, okay, no chocolate, huh? And he goes, ah. Oh my God. I run, I go, we gotta get the fuck out of here, you know. So we're traveling along the French Riviera, we go to Monaco. We come to a big, huge car jam. Nobody will move. And everyone's leaning outside going, hey, stringe la gazza, la bunge la bamba, hey. I knew I was in Italy. It was just being like over next door at the Fly's house. Everybody was talking like this. So the first city, of course, is Bologna, or Genoa. So we come to Genoa, and I pick up my hash, and everything's cool, and I split up from these guys, and I hitchhike on down to Florence. What a beautiful place. And at Florence, when I go to the American Express to pick up my hash, there's a letter from my best friend Tony, the Moscone. And he knew, I told him where I would be, and what he did is he sent me a bunch of LSD in an envelope. Orange Sunshine, straight from Laguna Beach. And so we, so I pick up my envelope, and there's this now. Orange Sunshine tabs were tiny little things. I had no idea how much he had given me. I found out later he gave me like 10 tabs. So I'm like, and man, I saw all this great art just blazing. I saw David. I saw Caravaggio. I was in the Uffizi Gallery. It was fantastic. And I remember sitting there late at night, looking at the sky, looking at the stars, and going, oh, wow, Italian cypresses. That's why they're called Italian cypresses. And I took a walk through the city of Florence in the middle of the night. No one was awake. And I have no idea what time it was. I was so dosed out. And it was just an amazing experience, Florence, and with that shit. And then, of course, the next place you have to go to Rome. So I get to Rome, and by then I'm on a diet of tomatoes, those long tomatoes, those Italian tomatoes. I was living on tomatoes, cheese, bread, and wine. That's all I could afford. That's all I would eat. And I would just, I was getting in shape. It was hikings everywhere. Now, in Rome, I followed the hippies, and they were staying, all through, this is like 1970. And they still have all these abandoned buildings from World War II. And there was this big building that had been some kind of bureaucracy center for the fascists during Benito Mussolini's time. And it was empty, and that's where all the hippie tourists were all staying. Guys from all over the place. I remember I was involved in the first soccer match I ever played, the only soccer match I ever played. And it was guys from, Italy and France and Bulgaria and Romania and then me, the American, didn't know what he was doing. They're all running around me, and I'm like trying to tackle them, thinking it was football. So anyway, and you go to Rome, you see all, the Trevi and this and that. And one day I go to the Vatican. Wow, blew me away. I sat for 30, 40 minutes in front of the Pieta, as close to me as I am to the camera. You can't do that anymore. Some crazy bastard 5, 10 years later got a hammer and jumped the rail and pounded the Pieta, broke it. It was just so much freedom. So I sat in front of the Pieta, and then I go into the Vatican, and I go on their tour, and we go into the room, the Sistine Chapel, and up above is Michelangelo's incredible work, and the room's pretty full, and everyone's standing there looking up. Well, fuck that, man. I'm gonna get a stiff neck. So I look over, and there's an altar with a little altar on the side, and it has a little cordon made of velvet rope. So I just step over the rope, throw it on my bag, lay on my back, and just look at the Sistine Chapel on my back, totally relaxed. And I must have been checking out that thing about 15 minutes until they found me. When they found me, I had to say I got a little bit of trouble. Anyway, I got a good look at the Sistine Chapel. And then, you're hanging out in Rome, and it's just, you have all this time, and you're all partying and hanging out. And there was this guy from New York, and he had a girl with him named Dana, a blonde girl, wild frizzy hair. She was like a hero type chick. This little chick had just come from Morocco. She had ridden her motorcycle across Morocco, across Spain, all the way to Rome, and sold her motorcycle. What a ballsy chick. So, we were immediately attracted to each other. So, I said that I was going to go up to Venice, and she said, I want to go with you. And she broke up with the guy, and it was an ugly scene. He was giving me the stink eye, but he knew I could kick his ass, so he didn't do anything. And we got a ride, with these people in a van, another van, young kids from East Coast college kids. We figured they were hip kids, So we got a ride, and as soon as we get in the back seat, the back of the van, there's 3 kids sitting in front, the guy, his girlfriend, and their buddy. They're all 3 traveling through Europe together. Well, as soon as we get in the back seat, me and this girl just go for it, man. We start just banging away in the back of this van, and and we're like, making the whole noises, the whole fucking thing. So we come to our first stop, and those phony hippies threw us out of the fucking van because they were freaked out by us doing that. I thought we're all hippies, it's supposed to be free love and all that jazz. So anyway, we got another ride, and we got a ride to Milan eventually. And we're hitchhiking out of Milan going to Venice. And this Italian sports car, I don't know if it was a Maserati, I don't remember, pulls up. And this super sophisticated Italian dude. I mean, he just looked like Rossano Brazzi. He was wearing a tie and a suit from Milan, and he was such a cool dude. And he picks us up, and he gave us a ride into Venice, and he spoke to us about the social issues, and it was really, really such an eye-opening experience to be around someone who was, high class and ritzy, and yet he was open to us. And I just never forget that guy. He was like someone who I would admire. So Venice, I don't know if you've ever been there, but this is 1970. They have the city, of course, with no cars, and outside they had a huge sand dune which people parked their cars. Now there's probably, I don't know, now there's probably a parking lot and they charge you and this and that, but then just everybody parked their cars in the sand dune. And so we set up my little lean-to, and we would sleep in the parking lot among all the cars, and during the day, in the sand dunes, during the day we'd walk into Venice and the Peggy Guggenheim Museum, and just the most romantic city in the world. It's just, and I've been to a lot of them. Beautiful. So Dana and I are doing great. We're getting along. We're just a couple of young hippies. And so we hitchhike out of Venice, and we go up into Switzerland. The first city you go into is Lugano, and this beautiful lake, and we meet some other East Coast hippie kids who are a lot hipper than the other guys we were with. And they take us to Grindelwald, a magical place. Now I have no idea. It's probably touristy. It looks like Disneyland, probably. It's a small world or something. But then it was a beautiful make-believe type city. All the old Swiss architecture, and right above the city is the Eiger, that gigantic mountain. Just gorgeous. So we're staying there with them, and these guys we're riding with, they go, would you guys like some purple haze? Purple haze is in my brain. We go, wow, really? Real purple haze? They go, yeah, real purple haze. So we drop these tabs, and they drop their tabs, and Dana and I start hiking up the Eiger. Not the actual Eiger, but the valley and the fields of the pasture area of trail going up to the Eiger. We're walking, and there's flowers, and there's wild strawberries. We're picking them and eating them, and I'm just having a wonderful time. And I look over and I see this girl I'm with is like pale and curled up in the ground. She just drops. What's wrong? She goes, I'm in pain. I'm in incredible pain. I went, oh my God. So I literally pick her up, and I walk down the 2,000 feet of switch tracks we'd hiked, and I carry her down, and I run into those guys that we were, had our backpacks and stuff in their van, and they go, we got to find a doctor. And there's only one doctor in Grindelwald, and we have to go to his house. And we go to his house, and we knock on the door, and we go, sir, he goes, well, come into my, he goes, she's sick, she's in pain. He goes, come into my examination room. And he's got an examination room in his house down below. We go in there, it's all very sterile and clean. It is Switzerland. And he starts, he says, lay down on this table. We lift her and put her on the table. And the cop looks, not the cop, the doctor looks at us all. And he can see we're all just ripped to the tits, man. He just goes, oh, wow. And he doesn't say anything. And so he starts checking this Dana out, and he says, I think she's going to have a burst appendix any moment. You have to take her to the hospital at Interlaken. Burst appendix, girl's gonna die, we're freaked. Oh, we're in the middle of the Swiss Alps, right? So we carry her to these guys' vans, and we all get in the van, and we start driving out of Grindelwald, and a hellacious alpine storm comes upon us. We're driving through the Alps with water rushing down, the rivers are swollen, and we're all just blazed out on acid. And it's just, you know, we opened the side van so it's open so we can see the sides of the mountains and the rivers, you know, rivulets forming into rivers and just, and all the time on a loop we have, come down off your throne and leave your body alone. Somebody must change. That great song by Blind Faith. And, Stevie Winwood. And it was just, and we're listening to this over and over again. And the lightning is lighting up the whole valley that we're driving in. And it's just, wow. It's just such a thing. This girl's in my arms and she's moaning. And wow, it's just, what an experience. And we go pulling into Grindelwald, you know, out of the wilds that we were driving through. And we go, you know, some guy, you know, we yell, some guy at the hospital, he goes, ah, ah. So we turn, make this right-hand turn, and I fly out of the fucking van because you know, he hit the curb. When he's making his turn, he hit the curb. I fly out, I hit, and I fly back into the van. I felt like Superman. And we pull into the van, we pull into the hospital, and all these nuns come out, and they take Dana away. And our friends going, well, we're going to leave. And I said, well, give us our stuff. And so I set up a tent area in front of the hospital on the grass. And I stayed there a day and a half while they checked out Dana. And it turns out what she had is she had worms. She had picked up worms in Morocco, and they were eating her guts. So, you know, modern medicine took care of that right away. So we hitchhike out of Interlaken, and we have to go north because, you know, it's getting near the end of my trip. So I have to, you know, go eventually to Luxembourg, and she wants to go to Amsterdam. So we start hitchhiking, and we come out of Interlaken just before Basel. Nightfall falls upon us, and another storm comes. And we're on this road that becomes unwalkable. It's a big dirt road, and it's raining so hard. We go partly up a hill. I take out my poncho. I put it over a tree, over a bush. We climb under the bush, and we spent the night shivering under this lightning, thunder, crashing storm out in the middle of the highway area of Switzerland. So we wake up in the morning after this hellacious storm. We are just frazzled and fatigued, even if we didn't sleep at all. We put on our backpacks, wrap up the stuff. We start walking down this road, which is sucking our boots off. We finally get to Basel. From there, we start hitchhiking. And these are hard hitchhiking days. We're both tired. You know, I think our relationship was starting to fray a little bit because I was going to go to Luxembourg and fly out, and she wanted to go to Amsterdam, so I told her I'd go with her to Amsterdam. Hard hitchhiking days. I remember one night we were hitchhiking to some town in Germany or maybe it was Belgium, I don't remember where, and we literally fell asleep with my back against the doorway, my thumb out, and the girl asleep on my chest. I mean, that is as hardcore hippie traveling as you can do. And you have to understand how fantastic that was. Hitchhiking everywhere. And there was this whole open feeling that had come along. So, you know, it was a whole different world. There was a whole different feeling. Almost a feeling of naivete, which we don't have now after all the stuff that has happened to us. 9/11, etc., the right wing pushing, the churches pushing. Oh my God, what will we become? But anyway, so we hitchhiked. I fell asleep, like I said, one night hitchhiking with her on my chest. We woke up in the morning, I was still in that position. I remember one time shortly after that, we started getting up, and I stuck out my thumb, and some guy driving by looked at me and went, which means fuck you in Europe. And I remember seeing the hate in this guy's eyes. And little did I know, he was the future of what was going to come. Everybody turning against everybody. So we hitchhike and we finally get up to Amsterdam. And she asked me to borrow some money. And I knew I still had to hitchhike across the United States to get home. And I'd had that meeting with this guy in Paris a dude who had just left the USA. He said he was never coming back. He was around 30. And I offered to buy him a drink, and he said, no, everybody on the road pays their own way. And I was kind of like using that weird thinking. That's not weird, but I'd been sleeping with the girl for 3.5 weeks, and traveling with her. So I told her I wasn't going to lend her money. That just enraged her, and she walked off. And then I felt bad. So I asked one of the people at the hostel where we both decided to stay, I asked them, and in that short time I'd been gone, about a month and a half I'd been gone, the whole hostel scene had changed. It got kind of harder, and it wasn't the whole, hippie love thing. It had a hard edge to it. I remember it. I was going, wow, this whole scene has really changed. And so I said, can you give this to Dana? They go, and they saw me put money in there. And they said, oh, sure. I wrote her name on it. And they said, we'll put it here with her stuff. And I know they stole it. I know she never got it. And Dana, if you ever see this, I did give you the money. I don't know if you ever got it. So then we had to hitchhike, and I hitchhiked down to Luxembourg. And, you get to the airport, and it turns out our plane has been delayed. So where are we going to sleep? Now, this is what's different. This is so cool. This is Hip Hop Airlines, Icelandic. They gathered all us kids up, all of us with our backpacks, and they took us to a villa out in the woods. Beautiful villa. And, the guy had mega bucks. And we go into this villa, and it's got marble floors and a grand piano, and everything has got, all the furniture is all covered up with sheets. So, the place is closed down. And they say it's one of the owners of the airlines, and we could spend the night there. And we slept the night there, and it was fantastic. Got up the next morning, and we start to fly out. Now, how things have changed. I still, I'd bought some more hash in Amsterdam. And so I suddenly realized I'm on a plane. I got a couple grams of hash. I'm on a plane, and I'm going to be in New York City pretty soon. And the customs officer is going to find his hash. But back then, everybody could smoke cigarettes in planes. So I'm sitting next to this dude, and I don't remember his name, and I should, Randy or something. And I'm sitting with this dude, long-haired dude, who had just gotten out of Vietnam. He'd been wounded in Vietnam, which I'll tell you about later. And we buddy up because he says, he says, where are you from? I say, I'm from L.A. And he goes, I'm from Berkeley or Oakland. And I said, I'm going to hitchhike across the states. He goes, well, can I go with you? And I go, yeah. So we were buddies. And I go, you want to smoke the last of my hash? And so we buddy up on the plane, smoking I'd made a little chillum, and we're sitting there smoking our hash, giving it to him, smoking to me, and nobody hassled us. We smoked it all down all the way to the plane, all the way to New York City. We were all out of it by the time we went through customs. And what are we going to do now? Fortunately, he had a buddy he'd been in Vietnam with that he was going to spend some time in Jersey with. And the story will be continued at the next blog. I hope you enjoyed this trip. It was fun for me to relive it. And this is Viejo Fontes, zooming out.